Powell here with me from basically all over Texas basketball.
Yes.
Was it North Mesquite, South Oak Cliff, Texas Tech, SFA, some college stops. Been traveling, not recently, but I know in the last several years, a national talent evaluator for Premier Basketball
Yes.
and Joey Simmons. So I know Coach Powell from through friends. Like I know most of my mentors from the from the sideline. Like most of the people I interview on here, Coach Powell influenced me probably without even knowing it, just through speaking with people that knew him and had studied under him. So, Coach Powell, thanks for coming today. First I want to start off with a little history lesson. I know you came from Crandall. Just catch me up a little bit on your early childhood growing up in Crandall and how you felt maybe that developed your mindset as you went into coaching.
Well, probably the best thing is we had a middle school coach, high school coach combination, and he was the nicest guy in the world, James Brazil, and he was out of a small town called Hutto.
Okay.
And he was your best friend. We'd go to his house. We'd play dominoes. We'd play cards. And then he would open the gym up for us.
Okay.
So in middle school, we'd go to the gym. So we did a lot of playing basketball or dominoes. So that's one of the two.
All right. There was there any, you mentioned him being an influence. Was, there any other influences more than others with your mother and father, anything of that nature? That I know you have a tremendous work ethic and tremendous attention to detail. So I just wonder if there's, somebody you point toward that kind of gave you that mindset of details.
Well, probably one of the earliest times, back when I first started, I had a coach ask me, Coach Hall, that was from a small school, Wolf City, asked, well, how would you do this if you were doing a press offense? And I sat there and we kind of walked through it, and that was the foundation of the offense. I made adjustments to it after the first year or two.
Okay.
And so that's what he used. He didn't make the adjustments I made after that. But anyway, long story short, that got me thinking. And then I was fortunate enough to be able to go to basketball clinic because I was a country kid and I didn't know anything. I mean, I was just dumb as a yard dog. And so I knew I had to learn. And so watching Norm Pilgrim at East Texas State or Bob Hayes at SMU, or those were points of learning about how intensity you had to be on the court. Then, luckily enough, I met John Wooden, and he was doing the medalist clinics back with Adolph Rump and Gene Iba.
Okay.
And so I was able to go to those. And so Coach Wooden would sit down with you after his speech and go over anything you wanted to talk about.
Wow.
As long as you wanted to talk. And it's not like today, the coaches can't wait to get away from you at the clinics.
Yeah.
But he was a true gentleman, and he said the thing I remember the most, it's not the big picture, it's the small details that make the difference.
Yep.
So I started trying to be more analytical in my decisions and of viewing the sport. And so anyway, I thought I was lucky there. And then then Pete Maravich was the other guy.
Okay.
I started taking my players down to Dean Smith's camps in Baton Rouge,
Okay.
and so that was learning about, hey, you need to be playing in the summer.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
got to be keep learning, you know.
Mhm.
So I started trying to provide opportunities for the kids to play in the summer
Yeah.
and go to camps and learn from others.
Okay. We're going to get into the summer stuff here in a minute. So I want to dive into your defensive philosophy for a minute. A close friend of mine worked for you, you know, that considers you his mentor, said you're the best defensive coach he's ever worked with and ever seen. And he said, you know, the main part of that is you paid particular attention to the details. And when we were talking earlier, you were talking, you know, when we were talking defense, you were talking about 8 inches and things.
Yeah.
That's detailed. So, you know, first, what was your basic defensive philosophy and your style? What were you trying to, you know, to do?
Well, I believed in pressure. It's extreme pressure on the ball. When the ball is picked up, extreme pressure on denying, but you had to be in position to help.
Mm-hmm.
So angles, positions, points of attack, you have to be very careful about. But I believed in pressuring the full court. And a lot of people said at that time, you can't do it. I was coaching a bunch of slow white kids, and like I said, the most games they ever won in district was won before I got there, and we started pressing, and I think we went 8-6 the first year.
Okay.
In district, and that was the history of the school. That's the best they'd ever done. And so
Whole 14 games back then, huh?
no, we had probably 30. I think
okay.
I averaged
But in district, you went 8-6 that
yeah,
first time. Okay.
yeah, that was in district.
Gotcha.
I think there was 8 teams in district, but no, I played probably I think that first year I went like 25-7 or something
Okay.
like that.
All right.
And
So, you know, you said your philosophy was ball pressure, full court. You know, what are some of those details that you emphasized within that pressure?
okay, when you're establishing a defense, you have to establish I got to get rid of the negatives that they can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing you do is you got to become a great one-on-one backcourt defender. Then, and my rule was, before you can move on to the next phase of development, you had to be able to turn a player 3 times in backcourt.
Yeah.
So the techniques for doing that, it takes a little practice.
Yeah.
And you have to have exact angles, proper distance, and if the player ever touches you, the offensive player touches you, you're beat.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to whip you. So you cannot allow them to do that. But you got to be able to turn them and anticipate their next move. And at what point you cut them off. You don't cut them off square. That was the old technique we used to do, square. No, you needed to keep a 45
Mm-hmm.
so that you force them and put your foot on the out of bounds, and then you had to force the loop around it. So they had to go a step back in the backcourt as they're turning their back, because you're jamming on that turn.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, once they make that turn, you had to make an extreme jump move, and you can't do it standing up straight.
Yeah.
And that's one thing. Basketball's played in a crouch position, and so that was it. Then once they execute the one-on-one, turning them 3 times in the backcourt, then you had the seal technique when they get into the front court.
Okay.
Well, once they're in the front court, your main job is to stay between them and the basket and flatten them out. It's the first 8 to 12 inches. Your step, when they make their offensive move, determines at what angle they're going to be able to attack.
Okay.
What you're looking to do is to force a pivot. When they pivot, they normally will have to pivot in the 13 to 16 foot area. When they pivot in that area, that's where all these coaches that are now running gap defense, that's the purpose of gap defensive techniques. So they will be pivoting into a double team or where they will take chance of losing it. And so then after you learn the seal technique correctly, then you got to learn how to play quality post defense, influencing the ball to the short corner, never allowing a direct pass, and then being lower and wider than your offensive player. Most of my players were short. We couldn't have stopped it if they threw it up high. We couldn't jump that high much. Yeah. But anyway, so then the next critical point of development was how to deny in the 21-foot area, 3-point area and in. And so when they're defensing in that area, how to defense cutters. What's more dangerous, stationary target or a moving target to the basket? So at some point, the stationary target is less dangerous than the cutting target. So, but you have to take those out. So the rule is when they hit 15 feet, as you're denying, you're going to make at 15 feet, you're going to body check them. And you're going to be doing it on their legs, not their upper part of their body. You're taking away their momentum going forward. So the moment you make contact, they're going to float a little away. So anyway, the little details like that make the difference. But anytime you make contact, the moment you make contact, you turn your head and find the ball.
Because it's probably going by you.
But if you're body checking correctly, they're not getting the bounce pass on the back door. Because you've taken that away, because you're going to be at normally at a 45-degree angle on it when you make contact.
Which that kind of gets us into the physicality of the game. Because I always believed you could negate a skilled player with physicality a lot of times. How did you feel about that?
Well, a great ball handler, a really high skill, you cannot stop them one-on-one. And you can get physical, you can get bigger, you can get lower, you can get wider, but it's going to take a second person.
Just get the ball out of their hands.
You got to get it out of their hand, then wear them out trying to get it back again. So anytime a great player touches it, they're going to have company. You're going to have help, but you'll have more help quicker. So you got to, when you're teaching your help defense, which is more dangerous, this or that? And they have to analyze it in a very short period of time. So
it only comes through practice.
and practice
situations.
And so you have to be that intense in practice.
I feel you have to be very intentional in your practices. We were talking earlier about just the skill of some of these players these days, and if you watch them, almost everything they do at full speed, they've been doing thousands of times at half speed or 3/4 speed. But then you can see them in a game do it at full speed. Did your defensive philosophy change with your talent changes, going from North Mesquite maybe to a South Oak Cliff or different areas, or did you simply make adjustments to your system based on your talent?
No, really and truly, the more athletic they are, the skills and techniques just become better. So the skills and knowledge and did not change, but from one level. What changed when I went from say a North Mesquite suburban type uh, approach to coaching to a inner city school where you had limited time, limited facilities, uh, and you had a lot more obstacles. So the the first year and a half, I was at a little over a year and a half. I was at South Oak Cliff. Uh, we didn't get to use the school gym. We had a blacktop, so we went out on the blacktop and walked through it, and it didn't have goals, rims. It had goals, but no rims. So that's made it a little bit more difficult to have a quality teaching program.
Definitely, yeah.
And so
be like trying to teach your U.S. history class and outside or
in
your
the,
science
in the
class
swimming pool.
In the swimming pool, yeah. So, I had a feeling that your philosophy remained the same, and you basically skilled your talent up to it, or I'm the same way. I've had the same philosophy since I was in college. I've just adjusted it based on talent and things. How did you define success on the defensive end?
Well, general rule was you try not to allow more than 1.25 point per minute. Okay. If you got up to 1.5, that's borderline. So
1.25 points a minute. That's about 40 points in a high school basketball game.
Yeah, that's what.
Because that was my always. That was always my focus on defense, and that's how we defined success. Was we were going to hold you under 40 points. I felt like we could win most games if we did that.
So if you're charting a game as the game flows, and you're doing the possession chart for scoring, you trying to make sure that there was not a consecutive run of more than 3 baskets of the opponent cannot score more than 3 baskets in a row without you scoring. So the rule was, okay, one time that happens. 2 times, that's alert. Third time, I don't care what you do, you got to get points. So you got to draw a foul. So they increase the intent on getting a quality shot or drawing a foul.
Yeah.
So you whether you had to initiate or not. So we tried to have a lot more foul shots than the opponents.
Yeah, that was always one of our goals.
And I believe the percentage is 74% of the teams that shoot the most free throws win.
Okay.
And so I like I said earlier, we started doing statistics back in the early 70s, and I charted everything.
Okay.
So
I believe there was a study that came out of Texas Tech. You might have been involved with these numbers, and I wanted to see if you knew them. There's a percentage of games won for the team that made the most 6-0 runs throughout the game. Is that correct?
Yes.
Do you have is that something you could talk about off the fly?
Well, there's normally 3 10-point runs.
Okay.
And whoever gets 2 of the 3 will win usually.
Gotcha. Okay.
So it was critical when you were doing runs. That's 1 possession, 2 possessions, 3rd possession is critical possession. You've got to get points on the 3rd possession.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And so you got to stop runs.
Yeah.
Well, at South of Cliff, I didn't have time to teach all that. I only had 10 hours a week during the season, and I didn't get to start on time.
Yeah.
took me a month to get a court, and I had to use a rec center court.
Wow.
And we had to run down to it. It was a mile away.
Get your conditioning in
And
on the way to practice, huh?
And you really got your sprints in after, because usually somebody with a gun chasing you. And so
somebody chasing with a gun.
So, they were on your shoes, or they wanted your wallet, or they wanted your car.
Yeah.
So after about the second or third time our players were robbed, we finally got them to let us stay at the campus.
It's funny you bring that up, because I had Coach Mays, the current South Oak Cliff coach, on last year on a panel about adversity and teaching adversity. And all these suburban coaches have to intentionally build adversity into their practices. And talking to Coach Mays, I was like, your kids already know how to overcome adversity. You're just trying to channel it into the right, avenue of basketball and things. So,
that's a great way to put it, because this reminds me of a good story. Well, it was my third year at SOC. We were having a pretty good run, and I had 3 sophomores starting, and one of them had never played before. Had gotten to play before. He was on a team as a freshman. But anyway, we were leaving to run down to the rec center, and one of the players got his shoes robbed from him. And the guy that stole them started running toward the apartments. And so my players take out after him. And now he had a gun. And so they take out after him, and they catch him, get the shoes back, beat him up, for doing that. And so we did okay there for about a month, no retaliation. So we're playing for the championship of the district that night. Well, we had all left. Some of the kids stayed at school, and some went straight home to get ready for the game that night. Well, that kid that we got the shoes back from came in with a group of about 40 guys.
Wow.
And then they started asking, "You play basketball?" You said you played basketball, they beat them up. And some of my starters were part of that group that got attacked. And so they didn't show up until halftime or whatever of the game I was playing.
Wow.
And here we were playing, I think it was Headache Smith at the time, and he was probably the best player in Texas. And we couldn't, with 3 sophomores starting, you couldn't beat them without those kids that didn't show up, that weren't able. Matter of fact, Julius Randall, uncle, is one of our players that showed up late.
Oh, wow.
And Nathan wound up playing for us at SFA.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, Nate finally got there, and it was just one big foobar.
Yeah. Did you end up winning?
No. We lost at the last second. And some of my, I think I was still missing one starter after halftime.
Wow.
So, but anyway, it was tough. It's tough for those kids.
Yeah, that's, I have a lot of respect, for people that can coach down there and use that adversity in a positive manner for those players and kids. And I'm sure, that's what you did, because I know many of them keep up with you. I know many of them are coaching today. So obviously that meant a lot to them. I want to get into the growth of Texas basketball. I know it's happened in front of your eyes, being in Dallas during the 70s. We spoke a little bit about, I think you kind of helped get some of the summer stuff started here in Texas. So I want you to talk a little bit about, the the conditions when you were coaching high school in the 70s as far as basketball in the summer, and then, kind of what you did to lead the charge into changing that?
Well, back in the 60s and 70s, when I first started coaching, our problem was we had the rules were against our kids playing. So we had to do things, without anyone knowing that we were doing it. And that's why, I see people that, I'm trying to find a polite way of doing this, that used basketball as a way of making money. We weren't there to make money. We were there to help kids. But long story short, we started doing things like playing in the summer. I would open my gym up, and we'd have it started off with 2 or 3 teams from around the county, and then it got to be a dozen of them would be coming in, and we only got our one big court there, and so I did a challenge board. So we one side of the gym you played full court, the other side to keep all the kids busy, we played half court. You had to win at one half court to move to the next half court, and you couldn't get to the full court until you won at the second time in a row. So it kept the best teams playing full court. So all the kids wanted to play full court.
Yeah.
But they
had to encourage them to play harder in the half court.
Yes. So I started doing that, and we got Sock, Kimball, Carter, Lincoln, BA, T. White, Hillcrest. We had a ton of schools coming in, and then in the spring and in the fall, sometimes we would open up our gym to the JUCOs. Okay. So I'd have my high school teams play the JUCO teams, and I wasn't coaching them. I just let them play.
Yeah.
And so, but that was, you had to do things to promote it and challenge them. 2 days a week, we would go to SMU and play.
Okay.
So we'd take our kids to SMU, and usually it was part of the SMU players. They'd be there. Yeah. A lot of the Dallas Cowboys, they would be there, and so we'd have they just do pickup games.
But you're introducing your kids to better talent, better athletes, so it's going to make them better. I used to like to try to have my girls play against boys as much as possible. Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about the BCI in Dallas, Basketball Congress International, I believe it is. I think you helped get that started in the area.
Yes. Well, in about 78 or 79 or 76, something like that, Jay Parker started BCI in Houston.
Okay.
Some reason he heard about me and called me and see if I would be interested in getting it, getting a team up to play them.
Okay.
And so I called some of my friends, Jimmy Tubbs, Jimmy Gales, and Alex Gillum, and I said, "Well, hey, let's do that, and we'll try to get it done under the BCI umbrella." And I'll call. I think his name was Larry Walker. He was out of Tucson, Arizona.
Okay.
And so I called him and said, would you send me all the stuff to be a part of it, and we'll get our kids involved in it and start showcasing them. Mm-hmm. So I sat down with these 4 coaches, and we picked 60 top players in the county to play, and we coached them. And so I volunteered my gym. We had Redbird, Rec, Alex Gillum, and I think either Jimmy Gales or Alex was able to get El Centro College, and those were our play sites. So we would go and play there, and and we just had a great time doing it. We were developing, and we had one rule: no one makes any money off any child. We're going to charge them for what it cost. And so we would give them a cheap T-shirt,
Mm-hmm.
and then we got the facilities free. And then we'd sometimes have to pay for the officials. And so we got that going. So then the next year, we had so many college coaches calling us saying, "Hey, that was great." They're all in one place.
Yeah.
And so we said, well, why don't we do this on a broader scale? So the next year we had anywhere from 800 to 900 kids
Wow.
in the program.
From 60 to 800 to 900. Wow.
Yeah. So when I left and went to Texas Tech, I think we had around 11 to 1,200.
Wow.
But still, we were not making any money off the kids. We the 4 coaches, we selected a person to act as our spokesman because legally, UIL, we couldn't have anything to do with it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, anyway, we asked this young man to do it, and we told him he couldn't make any money off the kids. He can get donations from people, then that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
He can keep that. And then he have to, any donations he's got. Some of the kids couldn't afford $25.
Yeah.
That's big money.
That was a lot of money in the 70s.
Yeah, that was big money. So we try not to charge any player any money.
Mm-hmm.
And that was their deal. And so no coach ever made any money off of them.
I think that's, first of all, it's noble and it's the way it should be. I think kids get hurt a lot these days because of people just trying to make money and not transfer skills and things of that nature. And so,
yes, exactly.
So we've talked about the 70s, 80s, and probably even into the 90s. I know Texas kids couldn't play together. They'd limit how many could play on a team in the summer and things of that nature. Here in a couple weeks, TABC is actually having a showcase event, college coaches for high school teams to actually play in, which I believe is the first time in Texas. And they're allowing coaches to work, several hours a week with their kids. I wanted to ask you, if you had your kids several hours a week, what would you work on in the summer?
Well, I'm gonna do a lot of fundamentals. That's what they're lacking most of. If being on the scouting service side and through a national, I was able to see, Minnesota, Indiana, Oklahoma, possibly California. They were more focused on fundamentals than other areas.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, their kids may not be as athletic, but they could perform well, and they could score. They were effective passers, and so that was a important thing to see, through
those eyes of an evaluator. Any particular fundamental you would focus on that, things you've seen in these last 10 years when you were evaluating that kids are just lacking?
Well, they know that dribbling the ball is fun, but they don't know when to dribble it and how to dribble it correctly. Mm-hmm. And so our rule of thumb on valuing players was scoring ability and ball handling skills. How good of ball handlers were they? If they were phenomenal ball handlers, everybody wanted them. Mm-hmm. If they were phenomenal scorers, everybody wanted them. And sometimes coaches or parents forget they got to have the scoring skills. And you watch the NBA today. they all five can score in the perimeter.
Mm-hmm.
If they do have one that can't, it really hurts the other four on the team.
Yeah.
So because the offenses are geared more towards one-on-one basketball, and kind of an example is Baylor was able to win this year, not because they had more talent than in the past. They started playing defense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They had a ton of talent for 10 or 15 years.
Yeah.
But until they hired that defensive coach that knew how to play quality man defense, then that's when it made a big difference.
Often like my kids to get a different experience, some different coaching styles during the summer, as long as I felt they were getting good, skill development. My kids played for Marty Murphy and some people I had respect for as far as how they were teaching the game. Is there too much time around the same coach? Is there such a thing? Or if that coach is really, really good, should a kid just,
well, the guys that have won are guys, or when I say guys, I'm talking about male or female.
Coaches, I know what you're talking about, yeah.
But you look at them, and why were they able to win for so long? Because they're detailed on doing things consistent. You take a guy like Lombard at Canyon. Okay, he won all those years, and these kids, because of the system.
Yeah.
They're not the best defensive team around. They're not the best rebounders. They're not the best ball handlers, but they're good at everything. Not great, but they're good.
And they believe they're going to win no matter what.
And they're disciplined.
They have a state final loss to Joe Lombard.
And so, they're so disciplined, and they stay mentally intense.
Yes.
And so, could they have been hurt by outstanding defense? Yes, because they had some flaws. And every team, no matter you take the Mavericks or you take Pottsboro boys team, they still got flaws.
Yes. Along the same lines of the growth of the boys' game, you started evaluating the talent of the girls' game, I know, several years ago, on a national level. So, what ways did you see the girls' game growing? Maybe when exactly did you start that, in 2000?
Well, I've always been semi-involved in girls because I coached the girls' coach. When I was at North Mesquite.
True.
I would go up to the court the first year every day.
Okay.
The second year, 4 days a week. Next year, 3 days a week. But to ensure that there was
Yes.
proper instructions going on.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, but from the mid-70s and up, it went through stages. About every 10 years, they made a huge jump. When they introduced summer play was the beginning. You take Stacy Stevens, that's a lady of our late coach.
Mm-hmm.
She was a country kid, strong, and could use her body, and she just really beat up those girls that played sissy ball.
Mm-hmm.
And so about 85 they started playing so much during the summer. The officials at that time they'd blow the whistle on just to barely touch.
Yeah.
Then they started playing summer ball. When they started playing summer ball, then the officials got tired of all the free throws, and they started letting them play. So in the last 15 years, there's been a huge jump in the physical play of girls.
Yeah.
And because of that, they'll get knocked down, they'll bounce right back up, and you can't, there's no difference between the boys or the girls in that contact that they're making. And so that's that. The girls, the mental toughness, the physical toughness, that's what's improved with skills.
Okay.
That's the AU coaches, they spend more time on the skills because that's how they make their money.
Yeah.
But most of them do not teach the proper techniques. And so they're, like you watch in men's, we're trying to throw the ball down the rim.
Mm-hmm.
The girls are trying to touch the bottom of the net.
Yes.
Not that they can't dunk it. Most of them are so tall now, they should have at least half of them dunking the ball.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't teach vertical layups. They teach broad jump layups.
Okay.
And that's why they miss so many chippers.
That's funny. Coaching girls, if we were trailing a breakaway layup, I would always tell my girls just to stop. Don't try to block it. Don't foul them, because 50% of the time, a girl's going to miss a wide open layup.
Because the girl coaches, 90% of them teach jumping through the layup instead of laying it, putting your hand on the board and laying it in.
Yeah.
And that's they're going at such a velocity. That's why it goes up at a weird angle, usually about a 10 to 15 degree angle.
They're usually too far under the basket when they shoot it. Yeah.
They just reduce their chances when they release it from that point, and they're going so fast when they hit it. If they had to hit the sweet spot perfectly.
Yeah. So I think we pretty much covered the skill that's most lacking in the women's game. What do you just feel?
No, the most.
Yeah, what skills lacking in the women's game?
Well, I can tell you this: it's the same as men. They're horrible passers, and they're horrible receivers.
Okay.
You watch pro teams, you watch college teams, you watch high school. They all have that same fundamental flaw of not being good receivers. Yeah. So they make the passing much more difficult for the passer than it should be.
Yeah.
That's one thing I tried. I had a rule when I coached on the men's side. If we can hold our turnover ratio to 5 turnovers a game, we'll be in the state tournament.
Yeah.
And maybe win. If we can keep it under 10, we can win district. So you want to win district, you got to have it under 10. You want to win state, you got to have it under 5.
Yeah.
And that's what you average. Well, when I did that in the college game, the reason UT Arlington women made a major jump is we eliminated turnovers.
Mm-hmm.
You had to be, if you can't be the best at any one thing, you had to be great at all, the others. So we led the nation in scoring defense, Division I. I usually had the same on the men's side and in high school. It's, really good scoring defense stopper. Next thing is your turnover ratio had to be, and we were in at UT Arlington, we were in the top 10 least turnovers in the nation. Then in rebounding, we were one of the shortest teams in the nation, and we were ranked 34th in the nation in rebounding.
Mm.
And so, whether we played A&M or Baylor or whatever, we were rebounding with them.
Yeah. Well, and you do those three things, you always have a chance.
Well, you give yourself a chance.
Give yourself a chance.
Then
yeah.
the opponent has to outshoot you.
Yeah. You're making them beat you instead of you
Yes.
beating yourself. If you're
And that's
focused on
where
those things.
most, I had an assistant coach once ask, well, why aren't you working on defense? Why aren't you? I said, we won't have a chance to play defense if we don't keep making turnovers.
Yeah.
You have to eliminate turnovers to be able to have quality, great defense.
Well, yeah. Because if you're constantly scrambling around trying to get set on defense, it makes it difficult to match up. And,
the
and
transition game will kill you.
Yeah, transition. Yeah.
Yeah.
I personally, I always, we started defense with defensive transition. We had a way that we were going to get back defensively, and we actually, we practiced that because I'm the same way.
Well,
if you can't stop transition and you're giving up layups, you don't have a chance.
You got to stop the transition at the point of the rebound and the outlet pass up the floor.
Yeah.
And I'm like you. I did warm-up drills where it was transition, 2-on-1, 3-on-2, 4-on-3. And now when you see coaches, how players get back, they don't really know why they're getting back and where they should be getting back to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But there's a triangle that should be formed around the basket when if it's solo, you teach them how to draw the charge and eliminate the layup.
Mm-hmm.
So every player's at 13 to 15 feet when they're deciding on what step they're going to step with to start their jump. At that point is your read time. If you do it a half a step early, they're going to burn you with a pass.
Mm-hmm.
But if you do it at the right point and read, and we teach defensively, you teach reading the passer's technique.
Okay.
So if they're a chest pass team, that's easier. I mean, I love that. But anyway, you should be able to take the charge.
Okay.
Even if they shoot a layup on the backside, hopefully the charge will eliminate it.
Yeah.
So I used to have a player that was so good at reading the pass. He could be back, make his step, and the moment that person picked up that ball to start the pass, he knew where he could intercept it. And that's mental intensity, exactly at the right time of doing it. And so.
Okay. Well, we've talked a lot about the development of players and defensive philosophy and things of that nature. I want to talk now about the development of coaches, and I know that's a big topic that you would like to talk about and things. So, I don't want to just talk about the development of the coach. More importantly, I want to talk about their ability to teach the skills that they've learned, and when they should apply them. So, what does coaching development look like to you? If a coach said, what do I need to do to develop? What's that look like to you?
Learn.
Okay.
Learn as much as you can, as fast as you can. And for everything you learn, you have to be able to execute the skill that you're going to teach. Mm-hmm. And I mean, you have to be detailed. One coach used to ask, well, why do you start with the grip and flip? Because the game of shooting and passing revolves around grip and flip. And what do you mean by grip and flip? You palm it right-handed and you palm it with the left hand. How do you do that? Mm-hmm. I worked with the AAU National Olympic group all of them are, from Georgia, University of Georgia,
Mm-hmm.
Georgia Tech, wherever. And they're 7 foot, 6'10". They could not palm a ball. Why?
And it's not the size of your hands; it's the strength, right? I mean, I can probably palm a basketball with both of my hands, and I'm a little guy.
Well, if you went to one of my basketball camps, every camper had to be able to palm it right and left hand in middle school.
Wow.
So once they become accustomed, they learn the feel. And then you say, well, how do you do that? Well, there's some of them, their joints aren't, they're just double jointed. Mm-hmm. So they have a lot of flexibility in it. So that, and most kids, they want to press the ball and push. Well, what they're doing is pushing it away from them.
Yeah.
And so anyway, long story short, the guys, it took me about 3 or 4 minutes, but I taught them all how to palm the ball. And some of them play in the NBA now.
Yeah.
But these are your vice grips. And you put it in the vice. And you can get I got tiny hands, but that's something you can do. Yeah. But the grip, you got to be able to grip and flip shots.
Yeah.
And so then you go into now your grip and flip. And with that, if you show the flip like this and you hold it right here, if you grip it and flip it correctly, you can shoot it 3 extra feet just because you do that.
Okay.
And so then that's what most of your shots are going to be in a very close range where you need that, because when you get to this, you're shooting jump shots.
Yeah, and the closer you are to the rim, you're shooting from up here, and you're just flipping.
And so it's forearm flip. It's a forearm flip.
I always thought the closer you are to the rim, the higher your release is, right? And so you're just saying, coaches need to learn.
Yes.
I always say invest in yourself. If you're going to invest in anything, invest in yourself. Seek out the people you want to coach like, the people you respect, visit with them. Coaches like yourself are always great at giving. Little story, my first year coaching, I guess it was in 1993, little town of Gracemont, Oklahoma, and had Mountain View Goatee Bow come over, and I wish I could remember the coach's name, but they were running sideline transition, like a Kansas, North Carolina. First time I'd ever seen it, live, and not Dean Smith running it or Roy Williams at Kansas. And then they were running the best man-to-man defense I'd ever seen in my life. And they just wore our high school team out. So I called that coach, and over spring break, he invited me over to his house to come sit down and talk basketball. Mm-hmm. Ends up I'm sitting with somebody that played for Henry Iba at Oklahoma A&M. And that was my base of what I did until the day I quit coaching basketball. I taught sideline transition, and I taught tough man-to-man defense. And probably one of the things I got from him that you said earlier was, he said, Coach Iba made you play one-on-one full court every single day. That you had to be able to play full court man-to-man to play, and that's where it all started. And so I had taken that was 30 years ago. I probably got the notes from that conversation, and he taught me shell drill. Like I'm here, 20-some-year-old coach, never really seen shell drill until him. And so, but he taught me 1 pass away, 2 pass away, 3 pass away, 4 passes away, and all those things that I was using. So after we learn these skills, after we go to clinics, I personally think getting in touch with coaches one-on-one and going and sitting down with them is better than going and listening at clinics and things. Although that's beneficial, it's better than nothing. But I mean, if you can get a hold of a coach you respect and sit down with them, you're going to get a lot more out of it. But then how does a coach go about conveying his skills? Is that where I guess, is that where it gets lost kind of in translation? Is that I can go visit with Buzz Williams down at A&M and learn the toughness and stuff he teaches, but it doesn't really do much good if I can't go back to my school and convey it. So where's that lost, I guess?
Well, it's the lack of knowledge. They just say, well, just do it. Just do it.
Yeah.
But you got to strip it down each skill mechanically. And if it's not stripped down mechanically, whether it's a shot technique or it's passing technique or it's ball handling, you watch a typical kid to try to do it behind the back. Well, most of them have to hesitate on their behind the back. Well, the reason they do is because their palm isn't aiming toward their butt.
Yeah. Slap that opposite cheek, right?
They're not touching the cheek.
Yeah.
They're leaving the palm up, so the ball is going to hesitate or go high. That's a behind the back pass technique.
Yeah.
But anyway, they have to be students of the game. I've been doing this just about 65 years. I'm still learning.
You learned something last night watching a game, didn't you?
Yeah. I mean, I probably watch as much basketball as anybody in the country.
Yeah.
Friends of mine, they let me watch their synergy.
Oh, man.
So I get to go and watch men's team. I get to watch women's team. And that's what I do. I watch JUCO girls, women, because they don't have it for the men. But that's what they have to constantly be, because it changes. Right now, everybody was, for the last 10 years, Baylor women was dominating the conference. They dominated it because no one could adjust to their defensive style. They ran a straight gap defense. So at 15 feet, you're going to run into help. They did the influence, but their mistake was, to me, when they reached the really stud teams that knew how to move without the ball, that could shoot the three. That's where they started having issues.
Okay.
And so about 2 years ago, or 3 years now, they changed their defensive technique. They adjusted. It is a slight adjustment, but they stopped. They were still running a lot of the gap philosophy, but they were becoming more pressure on the ball and getting over those picks or switching or whatever.
Just handling ball screens better.
Yes. They used to. They just let them go behind, but
can't do that anymore.
and they lost to, in the national tournament because of going behind.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you can't do that.
I don't think. Obviously, you teach the different ways to handle screens, but I was just always an over-the-top guy, and then I even got to where we just double-teamed every. If you go on ball screen, we're just going to trap you.
Well, there's 4 basic techniques, and each is good at its time.
Yeah.
And but you got to know your opponent.
You got to know your opponent, and your kids.
Yeah.
Got to know when the appropriate time is.
Everybody. See, most of the time, and this is the bad thing about having big kids, they coddle them too much, and they let them get by with shoddy defense when they can move just as well as the 5'10" or 6'2" kid.
Yes.
And so that's one of the things that bothers you is you're letting it slide because you want to stay on the side of the player too much instead of saying, hey, you're going to do it, whether you want to or not.
And it's best for the player for you to because somebody in their future is going to tell them, right?
Well, maybe. Well, it's a WNBA. They don't know what defense is. They're still learning how to spell it. So I know that's not
Yeah.
kosher to say, but that's one of their issues is that and their passing.
Who's one of the best coaches you can think of that you've seen either currently or in the past that you feel conveys their knowledge and the skills to their team? Is there anybody that just pops into your head that this person does a really good job?
The person, each has their specialty, and like when these coaches are out there trying to learn, find the best in the world at
that,
or two or three of doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Who's the best at teaching the shot, the passing, how to be a great receiver? Who are those coaches that are doing that?
Yes.
Because the coaches get turned on to names. Some of the best guys I've ever learned from were high school coaches.
Yeah.
I mean, they taught me a great deal about the game because they were teaching it every day. Mm-hmm. College coaches are basically teaching it for about 4 months.
Yeah.
And so you give a guy or person 12 years of teaching it every day over a person that's teaching it 12 years forward.
Yeah.
There's a big difference.
Lots. Yes, sir.
And so you've got a lot of great high school coaches, but right now the ones that kind of do the job in a college level where they would probably pay attention to, you look at defense, you look at Adams at Tech, mm-hmm. you look at the assistant coach at Baylor. He's done a great job there. Bill Brock's done a great job there for the women's side. Mm-hmm. Virginia, Gonzaga. The Gonzaga is, I would be watching their movement without the ball, and they're better, normally better passing. Mm-hmm. But if great passing meets great defense, it's a toss-up. So it's going to be a shooting contest.
Yeah.
So they always had great shooters, or that's what is recruited.
Okay. So I know you came up preaching defense and most likely on offense, getting the ball to the paint and probably getting to the free throw line. Obviously, you said you wanted to get more than your opponent. And today's game seems to all be based on the three-point shot. So, guys at the college and the pro level, what do you feel is driving this change in the game? Is it all analytics and all data?
I think it's a lot of analytics. I think that's it's right on the verge of really hitting the high school coaches more.
Yeah.
For them to start using it, the importance of it. And I didn't have parent conferences. I'd send home the stat sheet.
Yeah.
And they could see how their kid ranked on defense, offense, turnover ratio, rebounds. So it's all right there. You see why they don't have. These are the workouts. This is what happens in workout
data, yeah.
And this is what your decision on who's playing is based on.
Yeah, I used to do that with game stats, which I know people could say, well, so-and-so got more time than others, but I generally think you can tell if somebody played more, their numbers might even go lower than I read a book coming out of college on the amoeba defense because during college UNLV was hot and they were running amoeba and changing their defense. If the ball went to the corner and came out, they'd go man or zone. But what I got most out of that book was in the back of it. The coach basically had a rating system of his stats, and you got 4 points if you took a charge. You got 2 points for an offensive rebound, 1 point for a defensive rebound. 2 points for a turnover or minus 2 points, plus and minuses. And I basically used that ever since I was a head coach.
Yeah. And that's great.
You can pretty easily tell who's contributing and who's not when you're doing that.
And see, when you go a step further and then you start doing the analytics of it, okay, what is their scoring percentage in the post area? What is their scoring percentage on the mid-range, from the right side to the left side to the center?
Mm-hmm.
And then what's your shooting percentage? So now that they've got synergy and they're doing more analytics for them, they're becoming much smarter.
Yeah.
And that's making the world of difference.
Well, Ross Reedy at Frisco Liberty is one of my good friends. We coached together at Wiley and then coached a lot against each other. And speaking to him, I know he's charting his kids all during the year, shooting and everything. And I know by the end of the year, he knows where they're going to get their best shots from.
Yeah.
And he's putting them in those spots, and they're practicing those shots even more toward the end of the year, because he just knows throughout the offense, this is where Sally's going to shoot 80% of the time. And I think that's why Ross Reedy's been at the state tournament 5 or 6 times in these last several years, is he's using analytics and data, and I don't think a lot are yet.
Well, and that's what's going to change. You look at Dallas Mavericks right now. They need analytics, and I think the guy that they got now is focusing on it. Sometimes we get to liking a player so much that, oh yeah, that player is doing really great for us. We look at the basic stats, but if you look at the time on the court, I always did. Everything was based on minutes played.
Yeah.
In other words, what was your rebounding percentage for per minute? And so that you went into detail, like, oh wow, when this kid gets in the court, he's got 3 rebounds. He only had 1 minute and 30 seconds of play time.
Yeah.
And so
maybe I need to get him 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah. And I had an assistant coach one time said, well, why are you letting that kid play? He's not better than that other guy. I said, well, he just scored 5 points. He just had 2 steals.
Mm-hmm.
He had 2 rebounds, no turnovers, and 2 assists.
Yeah.
And he's making a lot of positive things happen.
And only one of those things shows up in what the 95% of people look at, the box score and how many points he scored. So
effectiveness per minute is
effectiveness per minute.
Yes.
Okay. Along analytics and data, can it be skewed if everyone's playing the same style? If everybody's playing this run and trying to shoot quick threes and get as many possessions as possible, which kind of seems the way it's going. If everybody's playing that way, can the data be skewed? Does that make sense?
Well,
so if 50% of us were still playing, we're not going to give you 3-point shots. We're going to pick you up at half court, man-to-man, or full court man-to-man, and make you shoot quick shots down there. If 50% were doing that and 50% were playing the style where they're running and shooting.
Yeah, well, that's where you go back to your analytics. What's your transition baskets, uncontested baskets?
Mm-hmm.
What's the 3-point percent with pressure, no pressure?
Yeah.
And so once you go back to your analyzing that, you get clarity pretty quick.
Well, I just watching, I haven't watched a lot of NBA till the playoffs, but, I just noticed the teams that are winning are still the teams that are going to the rim. Last night in that Utah game, Utah had a chance to get that game, and they just kept settling for threes, it seemed, where Clippers kept going to the rim, going to the free throw line, and they end up, pulling it out. The night before it was the Greek Freak, a tie basketball game, 104-104, under a minute, and he's got James Harden on him on the block, and he settles for a fall away 18-foot, jump shot. And to me, it seems like the coach would have had a play called. We're going to the front of the rim, and you're either dunking or getting fouled. One of the two.
That's the key. When they shoot fadeaways, they're giving up the foul.
Yeah,
and so, they all got ants in their pants. They're wanting to block the shot, so use that against them.
Yeah. Well, even on that play, James Harden called off the double team.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking. Anyway, I wonder if data is sometimes skewed toward that style of play, because that's just the style of play people seem to be playing. I'm anxious to see who the final two are.
Well, it's kind of like watching a non-3-point shooting teams play a gap defense.
Yeah.
They get killed. The University of Texas, why did Karen Ashton lose her job? Because she couldn't beat Baylor, because she was running 5 out
against a gap
and against a gap defense, and you got to still go to them.
Yeah.
And you don't have but 1 or 2 3-point shooters, so they get a lot of help.
Yeah.
And so that's why they'd have the blowout. So if they got lucky and they had the a good shooting game from the 3, then they'd stay close.
Yeah. But you don't want to depend on.
No, you can't.
Well, that's Utah last night.
It's those runs, those 3 runs that are going to occur during the game. You got to eliminate those.
Yeah.
And to do that, you can't live and die on the 3.
Yeah. You got to eventually force them to let you score, if that means make fouling going to the free throw line. You got to just make it happen. Well, I want to finish up. I call this the Big 12. I'm going to throw 12 terms at you. I just want you to tell me first thing that comes to your mind. Sound good?
That's a good question.
All right. First one's offense.
First thing comes to mind is posts are not taught how to score.
1-3-1.
Quality defense if you know how to match up.
Full court press.
Love it.
Success.
Great at everything.
Defense.
You got to be the best.
Motion.
It's the future of the game.
Leadership.
You need it in order to succeed.
Talent.
It helps to have talent. If you don't have talent, you better develop it real quick.
Faith.
Faith in yourself and others.
Love it. Relationships.
Well, I'm married 57 years, or maybe 58. So you got to have relationships. I was not good at that with coaches and stuff. Once I left the area or school, I just left it and moved on, because all I was doing was working for the next group I was with.
Gotcha. Legacy.
I really don't have a legacy. I'm lucky to have a lot of coaches been with me, have won state or been in state tournament multiple times. So, seeing their success has been really worthwhile and enjoyable. I've had several gone and have success in college. Or just in high school. That was one thing I think these head coaches should do, is focus on helping their assistant coach become better at coaching, and make sure they're teaching what is correct before they leave their campus, but guarantee them if they do in 3 years, you'll have them a head coaching job where they want.
Okay. And lastly, shooters.
It's skill that's not taught very well, and there's so many non-shooters. Right now, the three, everybody is living by the three. It is a tremendous value. They're going to move the line out eventually.
Yeah.
Because they're getting so much stronger. But that's your muscle memory can learn at 20 feet or 21 feet or 22 feet. So I think they're okay there. I think it's the other part of the cutting movement without the ball and the finishability around the basket. So, yeah, typical thing. Every player that played for me at North Mesquite, not so much in sock, but I did at sock, but not on the same. I didn't have the time. They had to score at the post, they had to score at mid-range, and they had to know how to score at the three. And if they didn't know how, then they went down to the other end of the court until they learned how to do it. They had to work on it. Some of them, every once in a while, I have one that would quit because if you can't finish with your left hand, you can't play for me.
Yeah.
You can't finish with your right, you can't play.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think it's Inman that always said to me that, and he probably got it from you, is good players can shoot the three, great players can hit the mid range.
yes.
And that is true. You see that every day. That's what's missing from somebody's games, the ability to pull up and in an elbow jumper or something. So.
Well, if these coaches will pay attention to the stats, you eliminate with quality pressure defense. You eliminate the three. Then they're going to have to be able to shoot a mid range or a finish. With a high release finish. That's the difference between the girls' game and the boys' game now. Is the men have the high finish, girls don't.
Yeah.
They don't know how to shoot it left-handed and right-handed both. And that, to me, they all need to do that.
Yeah. Well, can't control what side of the floor you're going to be on all the time. So.
No.
Well, Coach, I appreciate you stopping in with me today. I know you're a wealth of information. I know everybody's going to get a grade out of it, and I'm going to stay in touch with you as well because I'm still learning basketball, and even though I don't coach it, I still love learning and talking it. So appreciate you.
Well, any of the coaches that need help, I'll be glad to take phone calls.
Okay.
I'll come to their campus.
So you'd be all right if people reach out to me, give your number? And,
yes.
Okay. So anybody wants to reach out to me, a legend here is giving you the opportunity to pick his brain. So reach out to me and I'll get you in touch with Coach Powell.
Well, I hope it helps.
It will. Appreciate it, Coach.